all right, everyone. It's your favorite political innovator, David Washington here. And I have an audio episode of Battlefield Correspondent. And this is something special. My friends, Galvin and Edith, did a synopsis of the whole Orange County mid-decennial redistricting advisory committee process and the final decision made by the Orange County Board of Commissioners decision on October 14th to go with map 7B after about maybe 2.5 hours of public comment and a little bit of debate. There was a decision 5-2 to go with map 7B. So I'm going to let Galvin and Edith tell you all about it. Here we go.
Okay, let's dive into this. Orange County, Florida. They decided to expand their county commission. 6 districts become 8. You probably think, okay, massive public support, right? A clear mandate.
You really would think that. But no, not exactly. The entire basis for this huge, really intense, 7-month redistricting effort, it passed by, well, the absolute narrowest of margins.
How narrow are we talking?
We're talking November 2024. The charter amendment got just 50.85% of the vote, barely over the line. So, that incredibly close result, it kind of sets the stage for all the arguments and the tension that came later.
Yeah, that definitely frames it differently. Not exactly a unified call for change. So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to really unpack what happened next. The Mid-Decennial Redistricting Advisory Committee, the MRAC.
Exactly. We want to get into that whole process. 19 meetings, endless debates, how they actually redrew the political map for, nearly 1.5 million people in Orange County?
It sounds like a massive undertaking.
Oh, it was. We need to look at the fierce arguments over, the data they had to use or could use, the pressure of this explosive growth happening all around them, and then the final calls that created these 2 brand new districts, District 7 and District 8. Because remember, this wasn't just adding 2 seats. They had to redraw all 6 existing districts, too. It results in a completely new 9-member commission structure, 8 commissioners plus the mayor, and that structure, it kicks in for the 2026 elections. So, big deal.
Okay, so right off the bat, there's this clash, rules versus reality. The process starts in early 2025, but the committee hits a legal wall almost immediately, didn't they?
Absolutely. It's a fundamental constraint. Federal law basically dictates they must use the 2020 census data. That's the official yardstick, the baseline. Legal counsel was clear. Some committee members were very firm on this point. 2020 data, it is.
And there's the rub.
Right.
Because the mapping is happening in 2025.
Right.
That official data is already, 5 years out of date? In a county that's just exploding, we're talking maybe 1,000 new people moving in every week.
Yeah. It's like trying to draw a map of a river that's actively flooding, but you're only allowed to use a photo from 5 years ago. It creates this huge tension, legally, ethically.
How do they square that?
Well, the guiding legal principle is 1 person, 1 vote. That means districts have to be almost exactly equal in population. They were aiming for roughly 178,000 to 188,000 residents per district. And the total population difference, the deviation between the biggest and smallest district, had to be less than 10%. Very strict mathematical limits. And those calculations, they had to be based on the 2020 numbers. No wiggle room there, legally speaking.
You can almost hear the committee members wrestling with it in the reports. This idea of the perception of growth versus the reality.
Exactly. Some members really pushed back against bringing in other data points. Things like, building permits, school enrollment figures, data that shows trends, maybe, but isn't the official certified count.
Why the pushback? Wouldn't that give a clearer picture?
The argument was that it makes the mapping process too convoluted. Too subjective. They felt they had to stick to the 2020 census because ultimately that's the data the courts would look at if the map got challenged. It's about legal defensibility.
It just feels counterintuitive. You're drawing lines for the future based entirely on the past. You wonder if they ever just asked, are these maps for the people here now or the people who were here back during the pandemic?
That tension was definitely palpable, but, despite being stuck with those older numbers, they did seem to put a huge emphasis on transparency and getting public feedback.
Oh, so?
Well, the MRAC held 19 public meetings. 19. And they moved them around to different districts between March and September 2025. They looked at over 28 different map proposals and amendments, so the effort to engage, at least structurally, was there.
Did people show up? engage.
Ah, that's the other side of the coin. You had committee members openly worrying about low civic engagement. One pointed to a recent special election where turnout was like less than 9%. Barely anyone voted.
Wow, less than 9%.
Yeah, and this member basically pleaded with residents, reminding them that the whole expansion only squeaked by with that 50.85%, urging people to exercise your civic responsibility, to be more involved than just that razor-thin majority.
That lack of engagement is kind of the backdrop to the really big fight, isn't it? Because redistricting isn't just math. It's about power and specifically defining these communities of interest.
Precisely. And that leads us straight to the absolute core conflict of this whole process, the biggest fight. It was all about where to put two very different places, the very affluent city of Winter Park and the largely Black and Hispanic community of Pine Hills.
Okay, break that down. Winter Park versus Pine Hills.
This standoff basically created the two final maps they ended up considering, Map 1A and Map 7B. Winter Park, wealthy, home to Rollins College, upscale shops on Park Avenue. They desperately wanted to be grouped with neighbors like Maitland and Eatonville. Urban, denser areas.
Why? What was their argument?
Officially, they talked about shared local issues, drainage, managing lakes, traffic planning with Maitland, things they felt they had zero in common with, say, rural East Orange County like Bithlo or Christmas.
So Map 1A reflected that desire.
Yes. Map 1A put Winter Park, Maitland, and Eatonville together, maybe in a new District 7. Winter Park city officials actually formally backed this map.
But there was pushback.
Oh, major pushback. Opponents saw this shared drainage argument as, well, political code. They saw Map 1A, which potentially combined affluent Winter Park with the large developing community of Pine Hills, as a strategy to dilute Pine Hills' political voice.
Dilute how?
The fear was that the interests and, frankly, the resources of Winter Park would just overwhelm the needs and priorities of Pine Hills residents, which is a community of over 80,000 people itself. So people rallied around an alternative, Map 7B.
Okay, so Map 7B took a different approach.
Completely different. Map 7B separated Winter Park. It kept Winter Park grouped with those rural East County areas it felt disconnected from. And crucially, Map 7B united Pine Hills, Eatonville, and Orla Vista into their own cohesive district, a new District 7.
It was the old air.
Explicitly, it was about strengthening minority representation. The aim was to keep two strong Hispanic majority districts intact elsewhere, and also to make sure District 6 remained a strong Black majority district, while giving Pine Hills its own focus district.
So it's a clash over community of interest, but also deeply tied to race and representation.
Absolutely. And this is where the data arguments got even more complicated, and pretty frustrating for a lot of people involved.
How so? Data complications.
It came down to calculating the Black voting age population, the VAP. That number is critical for determining if a district really functions as a majority-minority district, giving that group a chance to elect their candidate of choice.
Okay, so what happened with the VAP numbers?
Well, when the county staff analyzed some of the proposed maps, like one called Washington 2, their reports introduced some new, let's say, subtle racial and ethnic categories.
New categories. How did that change things?
It seems that individuals who had identified on the census as being both Black and another ethnicity were reclassified by staff into a category called non-Hispanic more than two races. Sounds technical, maybe minor.
But it wasn't minor in effect, was it?
No, because suddenly this reclassification statistically lowered the calculated Black VAP percentage in some proposed districts. In some cases, it dropped the Black VAP figure below that crucial 50% majority threshold.
Wow, so the very definition of who counts, politically speaking, became part of the fight itself.
Exactly. It created a significant discrepancy and became a major point of contention, especially around maps trying to bolster that Black majority district.
Dealing with 5-year-old data, arguing about VAP calculations. It sounds like things got pretty heated.
Yeah.
Beyond just the maps and numbers.
Oh, definitely. The political tensions were running high. This wasn't just an academic exercise. You had specific map sponsors getting called out, like committee member Mark Arias faced public criticism that his proposed map was splitting up so many different communities.
And it went beyond criticism.
Yeah.
Right? There were some serious allegations flying around.
Yeah, things got pretty ugly. There were accusations of unethical conduct leveled against a county commissioner's chief of staff, a guy named Wes Hodge.
What was he accused of?
The allegation was serious. It was claimed he admitted to basically spying over people's shoulders during public meetings, reading their private messages or notes, And then, allegedly, using what he saw to try and discredit residents who were supporting a rival map, the Washington 2 map we mentioned, trying to paint their support as fake and manufactured.
That's quite something. It really shows the kind of intense, down and dirty local politics that can erupt around these redistricting fights.
It absolutely highlights that these aren't just abstract lines on a map. There are real careers, real power dynamics, real personal stakes involved.
So after all that 7 months, 19 meetings, dozens of maps, accusations flying, how did the advisory committee wrap things up?
Well, they reached a decision of sorts. On September 3rd, 2025, the MRAC voted unanimously to approve both of the final contending maps. They sent Map 1A and Map 7B forward to the Maine Board of County Commissioners, the BCC.
Did they recommend one over the other?
No, crucially, they didn't. They submitted both maps without stating a preference. They noted the maps were, quote, essentially the same, except for those key conflict areas around Winter Park and Pine Hills and some minor nip and tucking at the margins elsewhere. So they basically punted the really tough choice up to the elected officials, the BCC.
Okay, so the final decision lands with the Board of County Commissioners. What happened there?
They held their public hearing on October 14th, 2025, heard from both sides again, and then they voted. The decision was pretty clear. They adopted Map 7B.
Map 7B,
Yeah.
the one that separated Winter Park and United Pine Hills.
That's the one. The vote was decisive, 5-2 in favor of Map 7B.
So the argument for strengthening minority representation and keeping Pine Hills cohesive won out over Winter Park's desire to be grouped with its urban neighbors.
That seems to be the clear takeaway from the vote, yes. Even with all the debates about data and growth, that principle carried the day.
And what does that mean on the ground? What's the actual outcome?
The practical result is significant. Winter Park, despite its lobbying, stays in District 5, which includes those rural East County areas like Bithlo and Christmas that they felt disconnected from. Meanwhile, Pine Hills gets what its advocates wanted. It's largely united within a new District 7, separate from Winter Park, which should, in theory, bolster its political voice. And these new boundaries, this new 8-district map, will be the reality for the 2026 election cycle. It fundamentally reshapes the county's political terrain.
It really was a marathon, a long, often contentious process, and it just underscores that redistricting isn't some dry bureaucratic task. It's really about defining political power, trying to manage explosive growth the rules sometimes force you to ignore, and navigating these really intense conflicts over community identity.
Definitely. But maybe we should step back for a second. Think about the bigger picture. All this intense debate, right? All the maneuvering inside the county building, the complex data, the legal fights. What does it actually mean for, the average resident?
That's a great question. Does it filter down?
Well, one committee member made a really striking observation about that. They noted that the reality inside those commission chambers, where maps and demographics are fiercely debated, is just completely different from the reality outside. The reality outside is that most people, the vast majority of Orange County residents, probably don't even know who their county commissioner is, or even which district they live in right now.
Yes.
Sobering. It is. And maybe that's the really provocative thought to leave with. If public engagement stays that low, if you're getting less than 9% turnout in special elections, does it almost validate the committee's reliance on that 5-year-old census data? Does the silence or the disengagement of the average person become the justification for not grappling more directly with the real-time growth everyone can see? It's a tough question about civic health.
It really is, because at the end of the day, these district lines aren't abstract. They have real consequences for everyone. They influence which roads get paved, where parks are built, how public safety resources are allocated in your specific neighborhood.
Yeah.
As Orange County moves into this new 8-district era, maybe understanding those lines and who represents you within them is the crucial next step for the residents themselves, especially given how narrowly this whole process started.
So everyone, this is where we're at. Map 7B is the official Orange County Commission map going into the midterms 2026. However, with the Supreme Court of these United States hearing Louisiana versus Callis in regards to the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and the justification for racial gerrymandering, could the Orange County map created in 2025 be in jeopardy of being rejected based on court decisions beyond the control of Orange County? If you've been following anything about the United States Supreme Court in regards to Louisiana versus Callis, the examination of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and racial gerrymandering, racial gerrymanders could be a thing of the past. And it was very clear throughout the mid-decennial redistricting advisory committee meetings, and even the public comment and comment by some commissioners, that race played an important factor in creating 7B and ultimately receiving approval by the Orange County Commission. We shall see. We may be right back where we started in March and redistricting Orange County all over again, specifically making sure that we do not take race into the type of consideration that we had earlier this year. So I'll keep y'all posted. This is David Washington, your favorite political innovator, reporting to you from the political battlefield. I'm your battlefield correspondent. If you enjoy the content that we created for you, thank you, Galvin and Edith, for that synopsis. I would love to hear your comments and share this with people that you believe that may benefit from this type of content, enjoy it, find it entertaining or informational. You know, family, friends, influencers, candidates, electeds, people who like politics or on the peripheral of politics. Please share this content. And of course, I love to hear what you have to say. So again, I'm David Washington. This is Battlefield Correspondent. Check it out until the next time. Take care.